television news, you're also always looking for those unique voices that people haven't found,
Mhm.
undiscovered voices,
Exactly.
those
That's right.
unique sources, right? But guess
Mhm.
what? It's becoming harder to find them because how many of us are going out and really talking to people in our neighborhood? So you're really needing to have like your town square, your little town
Right.
is now social media. Do you need to be active on social media to secure press? That's the question we'll be discussing on this episode of Unknown to Known. I'm Jamie Maglietta, and this is an on-cam ready presentation. On this podcast, we typically talk about mindset and what it takes to show up. However, this time, I am sharing something that I actually recorded for another platform. My friend, Dustin invited me on his LinkedIn Live, and this conversation spoke directly to you. I don't want you to miss it. So I'll make sure there's a link to the LinkedIn Live in the description, as well as to all you need to know about Dustin. I'm so thankful that he allowed me to lift this from our LinkedIn Live conversation. With traditional media splintering and new media growing, it's important that you are visible online. Not so much that you have to be a thought leader on social media, but so the press can find you. And we dig into that in this conversation. You'll hear from three dynamic storytellers. Dustin, who I mentioned, Dustin Siggins, he hosted this LinkedIn Live, and he's founder of Proven Media Solutions, a media placement firm built on decades of journalism. And if you're looking to level up, he could be the right person for you. We also have Renee Frojo, a business journalist who turned content strategist and now helps founders leverage their storytelling to grow meaningful brands. And Simon Osler, who's an executive producer, and now he brings this unique blend of media strategy, teaching, and journalism to his craft. And that's how he helps his clients. All four of us complemented each other so well in this conversation. I hope you connect with us, and I really hope you walk away with something meaningful after this episode. Thanks again to Dustin for allowing me to use this portion of the LinkedIn Live for this platform. In television news, you're also always looking for those unique voices that people haven't found, undiscovered voices,
Exactly.
those
That's right.
unique sources, right? But guess what? It's becoming harder to find them because how many of us are going out and really talking to people in our neighborhood? So you're really needing to have like your town square, your little town is now social media. Your dentist, your barber, everybody you follow are essentially your community. And if someone starts sharing a story about this amazing experience that this person had, you're going to be like, oh, what happened? You're going to be curious, right? So if you're not sharing and not showing up, it makes it harder. Like when we were younger, I'm sure we're all about the same age. You didn't really know what was going on in town unless you showed up to those little town meetings or the fair, and you're like getting the gossip at school.
Yeah.
Now it's, where are you going to get that? I'm not talking to anybody at the grocery store.
It's really, yeah.
Consume media as well as how we used to do it, right? Like watching our local newscasts and reading the newspapers and whatnot.
What is interesting, I heard a perspective the other day from a Tampa Bay reporter. She's been on staff for about 20-something years and has done a lot of narrative storytelling for the paper. And her beat was, she never really had actually a beat. She was just like the storyteller. And she'd find all these very local, compelling, personal stories that would make the paper at the time. And what was so interesting about her perspective is that it'd be like the dog that made best friends with the cat, and like little stories like that really weren't investigative pieces and weren't speaking to like greater cultural trends or like whatever, exposing something. But people, everything resonated with people and people loved reading them. And actually, they got so many responses from those stories from readers. Like readers wrote in just to say how delighted they were to read the story or how touching a story was or how it moved them or how to. And the newspaper, she said, started, they not investing in those stories and in that reporting. So even though like consumers still very much want those stories, and you see those stories are the ones that are also still taking off on social media. It's these like unique stories, small voices, relatable people, right? Newsrooms they just don't have the budget, right? And polarized stuff sells papers, and exposing wrongs and injustices is like our focus. But people definitely want those stories. It's just like you said, it's someone needs to, if you're not finding it on social media, if people aren't telling their own story and then getting picked up or getting noticed, and then somebody knows a reporter that can pick up the story, it's like,
How are you going to find it?
how are you going to find it? Yeah. Yeah. I would love it if newspapers started investing more in that sort of like on the ground local indicative reporting. But
We're going to pause this conversation to let you know about Riverside FM. It is more than a podcasting platform. It is a content creation studio. I've been using it for years, and I highly recommend it if you are someone who wants to create short or long form content in one place. From editing to AI, this program has it all. And as a television news producer, I highly recommend it for live events. If you want more information on Riverside FM, grab the link in the description and use my code OCR15 for a discount.
What is the strategy to get picked up in the press through social media? I've not used it super effectively. Renee, this is how we met, right? I'm a very shy wallflower, wink, wink. And so what I just do is if I want to get in the press for my company, when I was a blogger, back when blogging could actually pay something, I got myself in the press all the time, not because I had a strong social media presence. I just reached out to reporters and editors and said, here's a thing that's going on. Here's my opinion or my facts on it. Do you want to talk to me? But over time, I do think that social media is a way, if you are saying something that is genuinely to a narrow audience that no one else is saying, that is well researched or has a lot of experience behind it, that is the foundation to using social media to get into the press. The challenge there, though, is ensuring that you are not just reacting to what's going on, but you have to be a little bit ahead of it. So let's talk about how do you use social media to get into or to get earned media.
If I could just, I'll jump off if I can here. I think that for what I would advise clients is that increasingly the value of that earned media click only goes so far because of the mistrust in mainstream media. So thinking about your strategy from how do we act as an internal newsroom, how do we find the stories that are compelling within our own organization and tell those stories on our own social media platforms. Sure, they may not go viral, but you are starting to build up a culture within your organization where when they find a good story, and I've seen this increasingly where the organizations that will have ambassadors come forward saying, hey, I have a good story in my department. Could I be featured on the local newscast, which is essentially the internal content generator? And when necessary, you can put that on your social feeds. And that link will provide a lot of excitement for your own internal team, getting excited about what they're doing and it being profiled. So that is a good kind of beginning of changing your organizational thinking about social media as an avenue to get earned media. But really, that is it. At the same time, though, you're creating much more comfortable people on air, while people who are more comfortable with their own voice, who are able to share the stories of your organization and potentially get picked up organically through earned media.
Absolutely. Yeah. People ask me this all the time. Like, how do I get attention? How do I get and retain attention? And like, become someone worth listening to, creating that internally. And you just approaching social media depends on your goals, right? But really, if you focus on what gets engagement, there's a variety of things that can get engagement. But if you are someone who can really start conversations and get engagement consistently, it's just that social proof, right? I am someone worth listening to. I am someone worth paying attention to. So having your strategy hinge on that exactly. Yeah. What are the stories that are worth telling? What's compelling to us? If it's not interesting to us, we're just putting out a bunch of, hey, we just launched a new product updates on social media. Like you're bored by that. Your CEO is bored by that. You can't expect other people to be excited or pay attention to that either.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's a 7-step process. And I, after those 7 steps, it's like you can be on cam ready. You can shoot your own content. And then after that, I start teaching people how to network. And I think it's important to be utilizing the social media platforms to also make connections so that the right people are following you. And a part of that, one of the first steps is this framework I have. It's called what, right? You need to know who you are, who you're talking to, how you plan to connect with them, right? Because you want to know how. Is it long form content? Are you doing a newsletter? Are you just showing up on Instagram? Like, how? And then your approach. If you're a lawyer, you may not want to be doing TikTok dances. You may want to be more like Jefferson Fisher, right? Who showed up every day in his car and he's a trial lawyer, gave advice, started to build a following. Now he's got like a lot of money, right? From what I'm reading. And he has a book coming out and he's a reliable source to the media. And it's all about those repetitions, right? Then that T is the transformation. Like, how are you going to help people with your content?
Right. What is the value? Wait, so what's the 7 steps?
Oh, I don't want to go through them all. And I'm building my course. I have a whole program coming out. It's been my child this year.
It's exciting.
And I think, Renee, guys, you hit the nail on the head there with thinking about what kind of content you're creating. It needs to be relevant to your voice. It needs to be something that, I'm just hearing a bit of feedback here.
Yeah.
You guys, can you hear me okay still? Yeah. So you need to be authentic in your voice. Like, don't do the trending TikTok dances, but create content being yourself, and your audience will see that authenticity shine through. And I sure go through your media training, but when you're thinking about your social media presence, the closer you can be to who you actually are, it makes it a lot easier to show up and day after day and continue building that audience.
Now back to the conversation. We're going to pause this conversation to let you know about the special offer coming to you soon by On Cam Ready. If you want to become on camera ready for social media to podcasts to television, this program is going to help you do just that. From virtual programs to in-person workshops and group coaching, you'll be able to truly elevate your expertise online and turn your knowledge into content. Creating content is going to help you create that confidence you need to level up online, in life, and with the press. So join us. Visit oncamready.com and check out the Essentials Bootcamp. It will be changing, but that's what it's labeled as of this episode. There'll be a link in the description. And now back to the conversation. Before we move off this, like we were talking before we joined, so I just wanted to bring this up. Like, it's important to know how you want people to perceive you before you start strategically implementing. You don't want to be up there talking about your hair. Like I was saying in grad school, I had a hair business so I could learn how to have a product and sell because I'm a journalist. I don't do that. Did I want to be identified as the girl with gray hair? No. So I had to shift. But now that I have a business, right now I have to shift again. It's not about me and my life anymore. It's about how you can help others versus yourself when you're using social media as a strategy.
I agree with that for the most part, but I think but to your point, also in terms of being yourself, it's like what parts of your unique experience and background and personality make you compelling or relatable to somebody else, like finding those little things. I usually relate it back to my business, but sometimes it's just, I know it's a really touching story and it's more about possibility and hope. I've told it a few times in different ways, but I'm divorced with 2 kids. And I met another man who is also divorced with 2 kids. And now we have 4 girls the same age. And it's a story of like new beginning and hope. And I had this like one story about, it was just such a touching moment where we were like running through the airport, and people always say, when we're all together, the 6 of us with 4 little girls, equally little girls, you sure do have your hands full. And I hear that all the time. And I told the story about this, and I was like, yes, my hands are full, but my heart is also really full.
Right.
Was just nothing to do with my business. It's sort of showcasing. I teach storytelling. That's like it's showing, how to tell a story. But really, it was just like letting people into a little bit more of the me behind the business, right? And then I got a bunch of people who were like, "Hey, I have this product, that is actually targeting like divorced parents. Like, great, you're the person I want to work with for my content marketing strategy." And people have said to me before too, I always ask, "Why did you choose me? Why are you working with me?" And one woman was like, "I just felt like you could get a glass of wine with you. There's a million people who do what you do. So I wanted to work with you because I feel like we could just get a glass of wine and you would listen to my story." So
It's like those pillars. Would you agree? Like you need to have the pillars of who you are within a rotation on social, but you can also just be very strategic like Jefferson Fisher and just talk business. There's a whole way about it, but you need to know what your strategy is before.
Always in his car for some reason.
But that's what I was going to say. He's also there's that personality, right? And it's very intimate. Like what's one of the most intimate spaces is in his car, right? So he is bringing that in. It's maybe just a little bit more subtle.
I would just say, what I would just say from jumping on what Renee's saying, that people remember. There will be a lot of things that we say in the last hour. I will remember Renee's story, her just telling me that, because she's invoking a certain emotion, that there's an emotional attachment to that story, and it will resonate with some who are watching the live stream because they can relate to that experience, or maybe they don't relate, but they can still feel that it makes them feel good in their heart, right? Finding that, tying your own personal branding story into your organization can be helpful in making you stand out and making you an empathetic character to have. Getting this back to getting earned media, right? This is someone I want to have on and to tell their story.
So we have a comment from Susan Powell. She's with Interstate. They're a logistics and transportation company. With that, we work with them, full disclosure. And she said, we have to shift her platform, right? You're more quickly on Instagram, but more professional on LinkedIn. And I think that's what a lot of people who are trying to use social media to build their brand. Like, I'm not really present on Twitter X anymore. When I was as a journalist, back when Facebook was had more political, not the leanings, but it's more powerful in politics. I was all over Facebook, all over Twitter, because I was a blogger, I was a journalist, I was in the political space. Now, I got published 3,000 times in politics, and I'm burying those behind media pieces, PR pieces, and business pieces. And you struggle to find those now, thank goodness, because I want to grow my business. I don't want to grow a personal brand anymore. And so to Susan's point, and even Renee, to your point, like your story fits really well with the brand that you've built. I've known you for about a year. I've been following you a little bit longer on LinkedIn. You have a really great mixture, but what you don't, I think, get into too much is to be too vulnerable. Because you don't overshare. You mentioned, divorced with 2 kids. I don't think you've ever trashed your ex-husband. I don't think you've ever done anything like that. There are people who think that's the latest steam. For me, I'm even more 5 kids. The one time my kid has shown up on LinkedIn, it was the back of her head with a terrible ponytail idea. It was my first ever ponytail. And no one cared because no one cares about the back of a kid's head. They care about the kid's face. And that's never going to appear on LinkedIn. So that actually made it very hard for me to be even slightly vulnerable because I just want to protect my kids. Right? So I really don't talk about them. And it was even hard. I actually asked your advice last year, Renee, running off that about my mother passing right before Christmas. And I asked your advice on, is this something am I promoting my mother? Am I using my mother in an unethical way? And you thought it was actually more opening up about myself and less about taken advantage of my mother's passing with the piece I wrote and put on LinkedIn. So you were actually really helpful in me trying to find that right balance to make sure I had the right voice, because I'm only present on LinkedIn. I don't have the quippy stuff on Instagram. So, but Simon, can you talk about from local media point, like if you're looking at a small business, I think on Facebook and Instagram, how do you advise your clients to have that balance of different voices for different platforms while still having that same overall narrative?
I think that especially if you don't have any, and you're a small business, you don't have any presence, is choose a platform that best relates to what you're trying to grow and where your customers are. So having any sort of idea or metrics of what, if you have an Instagram account for your business, Instagram, I think, is a good one if you're in any sort of public facing, like if you run a bakery, for example, you want to have the food shots of all the different, just providing your product and showcasing your product, but also that's a good place to go and share share your method, share something about why you cook, tying it back into why you bake, tying it into a family story about the recipe I make is my grandfather's recipe. And I don't think that is taking advantage of your family or leveraging your family, that's part of the story that it makes things compelling. Like we're talking about with Renee, I'll remember what she said about her blended family. So I think finding a platform that works for you and growing it is a good place to start, because it's very overwhelming to say, I need to do LinkedIn, I need to do TikTok, I need to do Instagram. And then you're going to probably do it all and hustle hard. And then you're getting up at 3 a.m. to start baking and you're going to burn out. So finding one place to start, I would say, is the best, because you are familiarizing yourself with that platform. You're getting more comfortable and you can own it, and start sharing your stuff on other platforms as you grow and as you start to get into a rhythm.
So right now, I just followed Renee and Simon on Instagram. So I can drink some wine with you guys. But I would completely agree with you on that. I think I have a audit that I give people. It's like you want to see how you're viewed by the media online. And that's going to help you identify where your weaknesses are and where you need to maybe put your focus. Because Instagram now comes up in the Google search. So if you're only on Instagram posting about your cat and you're pitching press, it's like, that's not aligning. So you want to have some alignment. But on the personal front, I had an incredible experience. And I started to share a little bit about it on LinkedIn and on a little bit on Instagram. I was worried about being personal on LinkedIn because I didn't want whatever I say to negatively impact how someone might view me as a candidate. So in 2022, I left my full-time job and I had been dealing with back pain since my second son for 10 years. But when you're in a control room and you're working every day, you're like, I don't have time to be going to a PT. I don't have time for all these doctors. And so when my job ended, I went to get seen and I had a compressed, like my spine needed I needed a surgery. I had to have a fusion in my spine and it didn't go well. So I had a second surgery last year and now I may have to go for a third. Imagine having a job, but to talk about that on LinkedIn, it was like, once I had so many people reach out and say, oh my gosh, like connecting with you on that, where I highly recommend you do take the approach of sharing some of who you are and what you have going on in your life to be relatable. Because even as a manager, like there's some really great LinkedIn profiles, like this one, I don't want to start dropping names, but there's this one woman, she's a director of television programming. And she was playing the guitar and is, you know what? I think it's time for me to start trying to learn something new. I'm doing this. Wow, that's a really personal thing. This other girl, she had the same surgery I had and she showed photos, like she had a double spine surgery and posted pictures like, this is why I've been out of the office. Like, I think it just starts to build that relationship. And I'm having a series right now, guys, where I post every other week on Get to Know Me. So I'm all about this on LinkedIn. I think by sharing those personal things, we can start making LinkedIn less of this is what I did and I'm amazing, and more of a community of people who can relate, connect each other and say, hey, Renee, I get you. And I would love for you to work with me because we have this great work-life balance situation and I'm in a similar situation and you'd be a great fit. Like I would think that LinkedIn, as we start sharing, will start to become a better place for us all to find life-work balance for people who are looking for work.
I think it's already trending in that direction.
Yeah.
When you said, Dustin, earlier that like Instagram is quippy and or whatever, some people are like, Instagram's a magazine, and right? It's just an extension of your website. And TikTok is like easy virality, and LinkedIn is still seen, there's still a perception that it's more professional, but that those lines are totally blurring. And it depends on how you curate your connections too. So like my feed is my feed is almost skewing too much in the other direction and saying it's like too many personalities. It's like too much.
I had that for a little bit too.
Here's my breakfast, here's my lunch, or here's like an idea I had in the shower that I
offended I was by somebody
Oh, see, I'm not
Yeah.
seeing that as
Okay.
much.
It
Maybe
just
I need
totally
more friends.
depends. It just depends on who you're following and what you engage with, right? Like
And
the
what you
algorithm
engage with.
works. The algorithm gives you more of what you're engaging with. That's
Yeah,
it,
that's a good
Right.
point.
right?
Algorithm,
So, and when I was
you will your own
engaging,
presence.
yeah, you totally do, and you can manipulate it, right? So I was joking the other day. I was like, can we bring back some frameworks? Like, I need some more expertise in my field. Like, I want to learn things again. And I was joking. This also, I know that I am the one contributing to that.
I think you're always going to get pushback from some who say this isn't when did LinkedIn
Right.
become Facebook?
Facebook,
And
right.
the idea that you're never going to please everyone, because there's certain thought police that want to say this is how you have to behave and this is how you have to show up on a platform. And I think the ones that really stand out, I think of the Nick Power example of someone who's just like going in completely breaking all the rules on LinkedIn and getting a huge following because of it. So you don't have to follow those rules. I understand though, if you're working for a corporation and you want to think about how you want to have a more manicured expression of who you are. I do think that you showing that as much as you're comfortable with, like with Dustin, he doesn't want to talk about a lot about his raising 5 children and how that impacts his business. There's probably a lot of opportunity there, but he doesn't feel comfortable with that. And I think we all need to just respect everyone's individual boundaries about what, and if someone's an overshare, you know how you can unfollow them and you can see the metrics. We have such rich metrics now that you can see what are people liking, what's not really landing as much.
And to that point, so
Yes,
basically,
yeah.
yeah, in my opinion, at least, you mentioned Nick Powers. I started seeing this guy. I don't know who he is. I started seeing his name pop up about 6 weeks ago. I'm way out. I'm always buying the trends, and that's okay with me. But it's also, though, if Nick is breaking all these rules, a lot of people are going to see that and say, oh, I want to copy that. Versus saying, what is my voice? How can I stand out?
And what's my goal?
What is my goal?
And what is my goal, by the way? Yeah, because Nick Powers, by the way, works for a company. All these big personalities have full-time jobs. Like none of them, they're all,
I didn't know
doing a class just on this. I'm like, these are all the big personalities that you're seeing on the feed. They're going viral constantly. They're really funny. They're relieving stress and tension for us. They're voicing things that we can articulate. That's why they're gaining. But they're not trying to sell a 7-step course. They're not trying to necessarily get themselves in the media. They're working for companies and building personalities, and you need to know what your goals are to really have a distinction in how to do it.
But my wife did looking like a dinosaur. So I put
But there you go, Dustin. Even probably from my sense of talking with all of you this hour, you probably are sharing the least of yourself, and that's a pretty personal post still. And I think that is a perfect use, in my view, of LinkedIn. You're not always going to get huge killer engagement on all of your content, but if it feels like it does define you more, as you have said repeatedly here, you're a family man, and that's part of who you are. So I think that really helps. And I got that from we've talked once before this, but I got the sense of that even through the minimalist efforts of posting about your outside your career.
There's so much opportunity right now. I have a podcast. He's doing a LinkedIn live show. There's so many opportunities for people to land press, right? And media attention that if you're not out there, you're just not going to be seen. And that's really what it comes down to now. If you aren't putting yourself on these platforms in some way and you want press, it's just going to get harder for you to secure it.
Well said. Yeah, I would say, and I would just say that when you're creating content for social media, always be thinking about the end user. What are they getting out of it? Yeah. Are they going to click that? If it's Instagram, are they going to click that share button and share it with? Are they going to comment? Are they going to engage? Is it going to create a conversation? Versus just, I'm going to share my message and hope and put it out there. Because that just becomes video wallpaper, and we're drowning in content. So you need to differentiate by giving away one of your, if you're an expert in your area, not giving it away all for free. But like we said, we didn't hear all the 7 steps from Jamie, but we heard a few. So just being able to give something away for free shows that you're showing up in good faith and that there's value in people. It's worth people following you. Yeah. And it may be worth the media giving you a call and saying, hey, we'd love to have you on our morning show. You have a lot of great insights and we love what you're doing on social media.
Such a rich conversation. Be sure to check out the link in the description to go over to Dustin's YouTube for more from this conversation. And also check out all the guest experts on LinkedIn. Reach out to them if you have questions. They all offer something that could benefit you on your journey to earning media attention. Thanks again for listening to Unknown to Known. It's my goal to help you go from invisible to visible in the eyes of the media. But I just want to let you know and remind you that it's never a guarantee. But the first step to making it possible is showing up. Visibility is going to help you become noticed, to earn press. But if you're not out there, it just makes it a lot harder. As Dustin mentioned, if you have a very unique story, you don't really need social media. But you can't say that story got into the press organically because he pitched it. So it's a lot harder for you or I to just get a cool story in the media, right? So you need to be telling your story somewhere to get noticed. If you want media attention or legitimate press to help you expand your brand, expand your business, and help you find the clients that are ideal for your business, media can get you there. But you can't always get into the media without showing them that you've got what it takes. So start practicing. Confidence comes through content. Start creating content. Continue following this channel and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. I am so pumped up after that conversation, and I hope you are too. If you decide after listening to this that you're going to create content, tag me at Jamie_Maglietta on Instagram. I want to see what you're up to. All right. I've spoken too much. My daughter doesn't want me saying too much at the end. She's always on YouTube. I'll see you online. Bye.